Good morning and welcome to the Harry Jackson Show. I'm your host, Harry Jackson. I'm joined in the studio with my wife, Vivian Jackson. And a little bit later, she's going to lead the discussion. And I pray that you're doing well. And also we have Grace Staples who will join her in that discussion. And they have a whole set of activities. But in a few minutes, we're going to hear from the famed Dr. Ben Carson right here on our program today. Usually we start off with the news as being the first item that we deal with. And there's so much that we could go into today. But in the interest of time, we're going to simply direct our attention to setting up the interview with Dr. Carson. And when he is on the line, we're going to begin. But I'm going to give him a little bit of a lengthier introduction than we might under other circumstances. Most people have heard about Dr. Carson in recent weeks because of his remarks at the Congressional Prayer Breakfast, for which the President of the United States is always in attendance. And many people thought that he was, in fact, incendiary and maybe even insolent in his remarks. I've had the privilege of meeting Dr. Carson and serving on a board of a Christian university with him. So although I wouldn't call us close friends, I've gotten to sense and see a little bit about his character. And he seems to be a genuinely humble individual whose major concern is first, during the great work he does in the neurosurgery area, and then secondly, living a life of witness for Christ. And what strikes me about him as we talked to him early on was the idea of his commitment to his Christ-like witness. So I believe at the Congressional Prayer Breakfast, statements were really motivated, not by politics, but by faithfulness to his core belief system and to his concept of serving his Savior. There's a great new book that he has that is out that hopefully we'll have a chance to have him talk a little bit about it, but it was published by Zondervan Books in 2012. It's called America the Beautiful, Rediscovering What Made This Nation Great. And contrary to the popular opinion of many who would seem to think that the African American and other minority communities would be the last folks who would be able to articulate the greatness of America, this gentleman has done so with great flourish. And everything that he talked about before the president was, in fact, part and parcel of this kind of writing. I also know that he was asked to give his input about the health care situation as it was being formed and developed foundationally during President Obama's first year. And his comments being biblical, being conservative, being grounded, being inclusive of a medical practitioner's point of view were not welcomed. And so he was disinvited from that meeting. So again, we're very, very thankful for Dr. Carson. And in this book, he explains that the U.S., as the pinnacle nation in the world, has many similarities with historic empires that were in decline, namely their inordinate emphasis upon sports and entertainment, their fixations on what we would call the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and political corruption and moral corruption on a grand level. And so, again, his book is going to be very, very powerful. In our own congregation, at least two of our members and staff have actually encountered Dr. Carson in a professional neurosurgeon capacity, and he has served as the director of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and he's internationally renowned. He has authored actually over 100 neurosurgical publications. I started slurring my words there just because I'm not used to saying that much of a tongue twister. Along with 5 best-selling books, including the one we just mentioned, America the Beautiful. He's been awarded 60 honorary doctorates and dozens of national merit citations, and he is a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Most importantly, before we bring him on live and get right to our questions, Dr. Carson delivered the keynote address, as we said, at the National Prayer Breakfast in February, and the YouTube video of this was viewed by 2.3 million people. Well, what an amazing breakthrough in the culture, and what an amazingly clear, faithful witness for Christ that video became. Dr. Carson, I'm told that you are here with me live on the line.
I am indeed.
Sir, we thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come to our program today.
My pleasure.
And so we were giving a little bit of our thoughts and introduction background to you. So we would just jump right in here. You obviously came under tremendous fire for your views on the president's health care plan. And can you help our listeners understand what your point of view is? And is health care a right that we can demand as being members of this democratic society?
Okay. Well, first of all, a lot of people say that I attacked the president. I didn't attack the president. What I did was put forth an alternative and a way that we can provide excellent health care to people for much less money than we're paying now. We already pay twice as much per capita as the next closest nation, but have horrible access problems. So, efficiency is important. It seems to be a lesson that a lot of people in our government don't understand. They just say, well, it's not working the way we want, so let's just tax the people some more and let's get some more money and throw more money at the problem, which is not really particularly helpful. Is health care a right? It's not a right, but I think it is an obligation. I think, we are, in fact, our brother's keepers, and we should use our talent and our resources to make sure that everybody in our society is doing well, and that includes with their health care. But there are wise ways to do it, and that's the point that I'm trying to bring up. And, when did we reach a point in our society where if you offer an alternative suggestion that you're attacking somebody? This is all part of this whole political correctness that is destroying our society and that is beating people into submission. I've gotten thousands of communications from people across the country who say they had given up on America and they were just waiting to die, and now they felt revived. And what we have got to do is get people to start speaking up. One of the principal foundations of our nation was freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And when we allow ourselves to be beaten down to the point where we're just not going to say anything because we don't want people to call us names and put us in an unfavorable light, then we have succumbed. We have lost at that point.
Well, I want to commend you for your courage. I agree with your worldview. And because of my knowledge of boards you serve on, things you do, obviously you are coming at this from a Christ-first point of view, which is an anomaly to people in that secular world.
And it shouldn't be, because this is a Judeo-Christian nation. I know that some of our leaders say, no, this is not a Judeo-Christian nation. But if you read the book, America the Beautiful, the reason that I put so many quotes in there from the founders of our nation is because there's been an attempt to rewrite history. And I want people to see what they actually said, without an interpretation.
So you're off script. As a black American, you're supposed to be an angry black man, even if you are a doctor. And I thank God that the Bible has and Christ have impacted you. Third major question we have for you, Dr. Carson, is where does education fit into this? Your vision for America, really God's vision for America. How can we keep our standing as top in the world?
Well, that was the reason my wife and I started the Carson Scholars Fund. We would go into schools and we would see all these trophies, all state basketball, state wrestling, this, that, and the other. The quarterback was the big man on campus. And nobody gave two hoots and a holler about the academic superstar. And so we started a program where we would take kids from all backgrounds who achieved at the highest academic levels and who also demonstrated that they cared about other people and try to put them on the same kind of pedestal as we do the athletes. I don't have anything against athletes, by the way, but the fact of the matter is what will maintain our position in the world? The ability to shoot a 25-foot jump shot or the ability to solve a quadratic equation? So, we have to put these things into the right perspective. And we now have that program active in all 50 states. We also put in reading rooms. These are fascinating places that no little kid would pass up. And we primarily target Title I schools where kids come from homes with no books and they go to schools with no library. Well, those are the kids that drop out. We have 30% high school dropout rate in this country. We can't afford that in the age of information. So, this is the way that we have to begin to focus our energies, and that's what we're doing. And realize also that the founders of this nation said that our system of government was based on a well-informed and an intelligent population. And if the population ever became something different than that, then the country would also become something different, because it would be possible for media and slick politicians to lead the population anywhere they want to go.
I think that's happening right now. What is the name of this program, sir, again?
It's called the Carson Scholars Fund, carsonscholars.org.
carsonscholars.org.
And we encourage everybody to get involved. It's very easy to get involved, and we're trying to change the nation by changing the way that the next generation of students feel about education.
And we can give contributions online at that
absolutely.
website?
I would love people to do that.
Wonderful. I was going to say I'm going to do that today. I love your idea. Probably the last question we have for you is, how can we move forward as a nation while reaching back to give a hand to the less fortunate in these two areas, education and healthcare? Seems like some people on the conservative side, I am a conservative, but it sounds like we sound insensitive. So how can you do both? How can you balance budget, reach back, help people up? Can we really do it all?
We absolutely can do it all, but the one thing that doesn't work, see, a lot of people on the other side of the political spectrum, they say to the downtrodden, there, you poor little thing, they pat you on the head. You can't take care of yourself, but I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you health care, and I'm going to, don't you worry about anything. That is the worst thing you can do for a person. You are robbing them not only of their dignity, but of their motivation to improve themselves. And what it really does for those people is it allows them to remain the elite class. They can't be the elite class unless there's an underclass. So they keep them down there. They keep them down there and make themselves feel good at the same time. But, what we really need to be doing is looking at the way that God and Jesus advocated doing things. What did he do? In the parable of the 10 talents, the people who took what they had and then developed that into something, those were the ones that he praised and said, I will give you even more. So we need to be looking at ways that we can utilize our money and our charitable contributions in a way that will allow people to move up, not just to stay in a guarded underling position.
Well, you said a mouthful. I know your schedule's packed. Folks, you've been listening to Dr. Ben Carson, an American hero of our generation. Dr. Carson, we're going to be inviting you to come out to our local church and some other events. Stay tuned to The Harry Jackson Show. We'll be right back.
My husband Jake and I have 3 young kids. Late last year, he was in an accident on the farm where he works and spent 2 weeks in the hospital. It was so sudden and so scary, the kind of thing that can shake your faith. But God gave us this amazing sense of His peace and presence. He spared Jake's life and answered our prayers for healing. Through it all, we've been so thankful to be members of Medishare. What an encouragement to have fellow believers sharing our medical bills. I love how whenever I call, my rep prays with me. Medishare truly is Christian care for body and soul.
Learn how thousands of Christians can help you save on your health care. For your Medishare information guide, call 855-PSALM-23. Not available in Kentucky or Montana. Medishare, affordable biblical health care. Call 855-PSALM-23. That's 855-PSALM-23.
Here's Dan Celia with today's Stewardship Moment.
I'm always amazed that so many people think that if they tithe 1/10, then they must have ownership of the other 9/10 after they've given to the Lord. Remember the parable of the 10 servants in Luke 19? When the master returned from the foreign land, he didn't simply demand a small portion of the increase, but he held his servants accountable for both principal and interest. It's important that as a starting point in our stewardship, we understand that every dollar belongs to God. This is a point that Christians everywhere need to understand.
You've just heard a Stewardship Moment with Dan Celia of Financial Issues Ministry, helping you plan, give, and invest wisely. For more information, log on to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
You're listening to the Ankerberg Minute with apologist and best-selling author Dr. John Ankerberg.
A recent nationwide study revealed that 22% of American Christians believe that Jesus sinned during his life on earth. What does the Bible teach on this issue? The Bible is extremely clear that Jesus is God and did not sin at all. Hebrews 4:15 teaches, "We have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin." To believe otherwise denies the exact words of this verse of Scripture. This unorthodox view is the unfortunate fallout of biblical illiteracy among American believers. Don't be ignorant concerning what Scripture teaches about Jesus. Study his life from the Scriptures for yourself.
For additional resources on this topic, log on to johnankerberg.org.
Good morning. I'm Vivian Jackson, host of Women's Wednesdays, a part of the Harry Jackson Show. My co-host here is Grace Staples. Say good morning, Grace.
Good morning, everyone.
Well, this morning we are going to be dealing with the topic of abortion. In January, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, and many people have a lot of opinions about abortion in this country, and we're going to look at a few things. Our guest this morning is going to be Dr. Donna Harrison, president of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and she'll be joining us shortly. And as we were waiting for her to come online, just want to give you a few stats that I found very interesting about abortion. 74% of women reported that having a baby would dramatically change their life. That's a very interesting statistic. I'll tell you a story later on in the program about a woman that I resemble who had that same opinion. We also found that 48% did not want to be a single mother. And a very interesting statistic I thought was the 25% that did not want people to know that they had had sex or that they were pregnant. Very interesting statistics and reasons why women may choose to have abortions. Our guest has joined us, Dr. Donna Harrison, president of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Good morning, ma'am. How are you? Okay, well, Dr. Harrison, we haven't made that connection yet. I'll just continue to share a very interesting statistic. I noticed that in the ongoing debate, there's the need for women who have been raped or have become pregnant as a result of incest. That is one of the reasons that they should be allowed to have an abortion. Well, this statistic says that 1% are victims of rape and 0.05% become pregnant as a result of incest. Thought those were very interesting statistics. Be sure to tweet us at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show, or
Hello.
Facebook us at HILC, Facebook.com HILC. Dr. Harrison, have you joined us?
Yes. Hello, Vivian.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Sorry about those connections there.
Hey, don't worry about it. Technology is our friend. Sometimes those glitches are a deterrent, and we must press through them. So I just noted that you spoke before the UN recently,
yes.
and you were dealing with the issue of abortion as being never really necessary. Could you talk to us about that? I want to know, is it really a right that women should have? So talk to us about that.
We have to be really careful about terminology, and I think that's where it's important to be clear about what we're talking about when we use the term abortion, because an abortion is something that is done on a woman in order to produce a dead baby. Now, there are times when a doctor, an OB-GYN doctor, has to separate the mother and the baby, even if the baby can't survive that separation. And we call that a termination of pregnancy. Some people call that an abortion to kind of confuse what a direct abortion really is. But we've taken to using the term direct abortion to mean those times when someone tries to produce a dead baby for the mother. Basically, the point is to kill the baby. So what we have said is that direct abortion, that is the intentional killing of a baby inside the mother's womb, is never necessary to save her life. So what we do sometimes is we have to separate a mom who's very sick, who will die if she continues to carry the baby, and we call that a termination of pregnancy. So, so just to clarify those terms, and that's pretty rare. There are a few circumstances where you have to do that, or else you have both a dead mom and a dead baby. But most of the time, with modern technology, we can save both. Okay.
So what I think I'm hearing you tease out, is that the killing of the baby on demand is what people are fighting for.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what was granted with Roe v. Wade, right?
That's correct. All the way up through 9 months. Now, some people think Roe v. Wade meant that you could only do a direct abortion in the first trimester or the second. It's not true. Because of a second decision that was made called Doe v. Bolton, the Supreme Court defined health, the health of the mother, as any physical, psychological, emotional, familial, economic, any reason. So basically, Roe v. Wade plus Doe v. Bolton meant abortion on demand through 9 months of pregnancy. That's what it means in the law.
Okay, so you're saying through 9 months we would deliver a fully formed baby that was dead?
Absolutely, with a direct abortion, yes.
With the direct abortion. Okay. Well, I think that's a very controversial subject. You know, in light of the statistics that I was quoting as we were coming on the air, that 74% of women having a baby often want to terminate the pregnancy because of the dramatic change in their lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that is a very, very interesting phenomenon. In your practice, because you are pro-life, how many people do you have to refer? What percentage of your practice would represent referrals to other physicians?
Well, it depends on what the person is coming for. As a general OB-GYN, you're qualified to do general obstetrics and gynecology. So if someone has an appendicitis, I'm going to refer her to a surgeon. Or if she has a heart condition, I'll refer her to a cardiologist. But the issue of referring for abortion is a little bit different because, see, pregnancy is not a disease. And so what you refer for is to someone who can handle a disease. But since abortion actually hurts women, it doesn't help them, then to refer for an abortion is to refer for something that's going to hurt one of my patients and kill the other one. So I do not refer for abortions. This is something that people don't generally know, is that abortion increases a woman's chance of having a very preterm birth in the next pregnancy. There's damage to the cervix or infection, or for some reason you get a increase in very preterm birth in subsequent pregnancies. And there's 120 studies in the medical literature that support that, including very big studies out of Europe where they have a very good medical record that you can do research with. The other thing people don't realize is that abortion is associated with a greatly increased risk of suicide, substance abuse, and hospitalizable major depression. And when you control for all factors, that is, you look at women who are exactly matched, and whether they give birth or whether they have an abortion, the women who have an abortion do worse. So there isn't a mental health reason to have an abortion, and there isn't a physical reason to have abortion, because both of those increase a woman's, or I should say hurt the woman so that she doesn't have as good an outcome as if she gave birth. So there's really no medical reason to do a direct abortion. It's not better than childbirth. And there's a great study that was done by Priscilla Coleman, who is a psychologist who's a world expert in this field. And she showed that even in women who had pregnancies that they didn't want, if you look at just that subset of women, those women who aborted did worse with mental health outcomes like suicide, major depression, and substance abuse than women who gave birth. So I think we have to look at what abortion stands on in this country. It stands on 4 legs. The first leg is that abortion's it's just getting rid of a blob of tissue. But with ultrasound, most people realize that this baby is really, the body's fully formed by about 7-8 weeks. And then the second lie is that abortion's good for women. And we know from lots of studies in the medical literature that abortion is not good for women. The third leg, the third lie it stands on, is we don't want those kind of people around anyway, which is why a majority of abortion clinics are located in urban areas where there's a large Hispanic and black population. There's a huge eugenics push behind elective abortion. And the fourth reason is that we have kind of a walk-away society, that we just, if we have a responsibility to somebody that we don't want, we just walk away. And I'll tell you, in all my medical training, I learned one very important thing. That woman did not get pregnant by herself. And I'd love to see the men step up and be men and do what they need to do, which is support her and their child. It's their child. I'll tell you, the sad thing in my practice is a lot of times the women who chose abortion, there was a large degree of abandonment. And this is also supported by Priscilla Coleman's research, and I'm not sure if she's published it yet, but there is some research, I should say, that shows that 85% of women who choose abortion say that one of the reasons they chose abortion was perceived lack of desire on the part of the father of the baby for this child. So men, you need to step up to the plate. You need to be there for her, because not being there for the mother of your baby means you may not have a baby.
Wow, that's really interesting, because that was also one of the statistics that I was looking at. that lack of support.
Yeah.
You're listening to Women Wednesdays on the Harry Jackson Show, and I'm Vivian Jackson, your host, and our guest is Dr. Donna Harrison, the president of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and we're discussing the topic of abortion this morning. Let's go back to one of those 4 points that you mentioned, the removal of tissue, saying that abortion is good for women, and we want to get rid of those kind of people, acknowledging the eugenics aspect of abortion clinics being placed in minority communities, and
Yes.
then that walk-away mentality that results in a lack of support for the mother. Those 4 principles that you outlined, those 4 pillars that abortion stands on. Dr. Harrison, do you find that more minority women are seeking abortions, more poor women, or is it a matter of convenience for the upper class?
Well, it turns out that even though Black American women are 12% of the population, they have 3 times the abortion rate as Caucasian women. And it's really sad because in some areas, like you're probably familiar with the situation in New York, some of the statistics show that there are as many or more Black American babies aborted as there are born, and that's absolutely tragic. It shows a failure of support for the woman. And
now,
as far as I'm concerned, it's a lack of respect for what women are. I mean, we bear the next generation and we raise them, and it's sad that we don't have the support behind us to bear and raise our children. And
but
to confirm that statistic, it's very interesting. Black American women have 3 times the rate of preterm birth as Caucasian women. Mm-hmm. And in some areas, Black American women have an increased risk of breast cancer, which I didn't mention, but I think I do need to mention that now.
Okay.
If you abort your first baby and you delay childbearing, those conditions, okay, we're not talking second, third, fourth baby, we're talking first baby. If you abort a first baby and then delay childbearing, you have an increased risk of breast cancer because you've arrested your breast in a developmental state that is susceptible to cancer. So when you look at what is abortion doing in a particular population, look at preterm birth and breast cancer, and the thing speaks for itself.
Wow. So what I just want to tease that out. What I thought I heard you tell me was that abortion in minority communities, especially among Black women, that it has become a form of birth control. That's what I teased out of that. And then I also heard that because we arrest the natural developmental process of pregnancy with the whole lactation piece, then we arrest the breast in that state, we have a higher risk of breast cancer.
That's right, and it's important to understand it's aborting the first pregnancy.
First pregnancy.
When we offer to our teenage girls to abort that first pregnancy, what we've done is just kick them into a higher risk of breast cancer in the future. And that's really tragic. The ones that it affects the most, it's the first pregnancy, because then the breast doesn't have a chance to go through into that lactational state. Mm-hmm. And that lactational state protects you from breast cancer. If you breastfeed, it protects you from breast cancer. But if you don't and you arrest the breast when it's halfway developed, that increases your risk of breast cancer. That's why it's a first pregnancy abortion, the teen pregnancy abortion.
But our whole culture of convenience and glamour and being sexy, all of that mitigates against the whole pregnancy process because it's presented as almost like a disease. You mentioned that pregnancy is not a disease, but sometimes it is presented as a disease. And so I think that's problematic in the sense that pregnancy is not presented in a healthy way. The value of the life of the mother or the life of the child, none of that seems to matter. We're going to go to commercial break, and we'll be right back with you with Women's Wednesday and the Harry Jackson Show.
Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association and American Family Radio. Stephen McDowell, president of the Providence Foundation, and yours truly will be leading another tour, in fact, 2 tours to our nation's capital in what we call Spiritual Heritage Tours in the year 2013. We'd love for you to join us. In addition, we have a trip planned for Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown in June and September as well. You can do both tours or one. It doesn't matter. We'd love to have you on either one. For more information, call us today at 800-FAMILIES for a free brochure. 1-800-FAMILIES for a free brochure on the Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon tour or on the Williamsburg, Jamestown tour. You can also go online at spiritualheritagetours.com. All the information is there, spiritualheritagetours.com.
Neil Maman, author of Jesus is Involved in Politics.
Most valid human laws are created to protect us. All of God's laws are there to keep us safe spiritually and physically. If unbelievers keep God's laws, they will also be physically healthy and society will suffer less. As we've shown on this broadcast, divorce and the breakdown of the family are the primary causes of our society's problems. This includes child abuse, rape, gang violence, low grades, and the increased dependency on welfare. This clearly shows that our physical problems were not created in a vacuum. Almost all of our physical problems were caused by moral lapses in our culture and by bad laws. So, behind every physical problem is a moral breakdown and a law that contradicts God's laws. Now, let me ask you this. If this is true, whom do you want making our nation's laws? Those who have God's moral and revealed law, or those who don't?
Start a small group study using the book Jesus is Involved in Politics. Visit JesusIsInvolvedInPolitics.com. With today's Faith to Action commentary, here's Janet Porter.
The crosses are being removed. That's what's taking place at Army chapels around the world. At one chapel in Afghanistan, cross-shaped windows have been boarded up until they can be replaced with something less offensive. And an Army spokesman told Fox News that all chapels must be religiously neutral. Retired General Jerry Boykin states that there is a strong effort, led partially by the administration as well as by the atheist groups, to destroy the identity of who we are as a nation, and that means robbing us of our history. A Christian cleansing of the military is underway, and we must act now to stop it. Call your 2 U.S. senators at 202-224-3121.
Visit F2A.org for more commentaries and action steps, along with news, links, and much more for your state. Go to F2A.org.
Welcome back to Women's Wednesdays on The Harry Jackson Show. Be sure to Facebook us at facebook.com/HILC and tweet us at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. Our guest this morning is Dr. Donna Harrison, president of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. And we've been discussing the topic of abortion. As we went to our break, we were just mentioning the cavalier attitude that we have about life and women as the progenitors of life, and just the attitude that we have, and just the careless attitude that we have expressed in our behavior since the decision of Roe v. Wade in January of 1973. The prolific number of abortions, and especially in the minority community. And so, Dr. Harrison, thank you for staying with us. I did
You're
have
welcome.
a couple of other questions. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you about developing nations and what are we doing in developing nations as it relates to abortion?
Well, this is a particularly grievous thing that the United States is supporting right now as part of supporting multinational organizations that are trying to push direct abortion on women. And let me explain how bad this situation really is. We know that medical abortion, that is abortion with RU46, which is Mifeprex, we know that women who have RU46 abortions, 1 out of 5 of them is going to have a major complication, like major hemorrhaging or with tissue that's left inside, or a pregnancy that continues, but with the mifepristone, with the RU-486 regimen, there's two drugs, and one of those drugs is known to deform the fetus. So these pregnancies that continue with RU-486, the babies have been exposed at a very vulnerable time to a drug which will deform them. So under the best circumstances, that 1 out of 5 women, if they hemorrhage, can go to a local emergency room and have somebody give them blood or give them IV fluid or take out the tissue that's causing them to bleed, okay? But if you translate that with RU-486 and misoprostol, which is the two drugs, you translate that into an area of the world where there isn't a emergency room and there's no IV fluid and there's no blood, then that 1 out of 5 women who has a major problem in the West becomes a death in a developing country. And the process of spreading medical abortion in areas that do not have the high-tech medical infrastructure is going to result in a lot more women who die because of this irresponsible spreading of direct abortion. But what's even worse is that in some areas of the country, some areas of the world, the organizations like IPAS and International Planned Parenthood Federation and Marie Stopes are using just one drug, which is called misoprostol. It's the second half of the chemical abortion regimen. They're using just misoprostol and spreading that in places where abortion is illegal. Well, it turns out when you use misoprostol, only half the women who use it abort. That means every other woman is going to have a major complication of hemorrhage or retained tissue or pregnancy that's now exposed to that drug, which is known to deform the fetus. It's completely medically irresponsible, and we are. It's a horrible thing that the United States government has any kind of support or connections with Marie Stopes or International Planned Parenthood or IPAS, because those are the organizations that are spreading this one drug abortion, which deforms children and hurts women.
But would this be justified by that one aspect that you talked about when you gave us the 4 points or those 4 pillars for the justification of abortion, that we would not want an increase in those kinds of people? Like we don't want more poor people?
That is exactly right. There's a strong eugenics push under here. The place where these kinds of abortions are being pushed are places where there's a lot of poverty. But we don't eliminate poverty by killing poor people. We eliminate poverty by making jobs, by caring for people, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to care for each other. We are each other's keeper. And to allow these women to die, and actually not just allow them, but to introduce meds, which means that women who are pregnant are going to die in greater numbers, that is completely opposite what human beings should do for each other.
Definitely.
Now,
go ahead,
Dr. Harrison, are you seeing that they're using this as population control in just the third world countries, or is this one of the methods they're using in China, where they have the one child family rule, per family rule?
I am trying to figure out why in the world China would have a one-child policy. It's hurting their society. It's skewing their sex ratios, so there's lots and lots of Chinese men who will never find a Chinese woman as a bride because the Chinese women don't exist because they're being killed because of the gender preference. So this is a way in which abortion, again, is a form of violence against women. It's a marker of society saying, we don't care who you are, who God created you as. We don't want your life-bearing potential or your nurturing potential. We want you just for an object. And I think it's time for women to stand up and say, you know what? I like life. I like my children. I'm going to take care of them. Whether society wants my child or not, I want my child, and I'm going to fight for that child. And I think it's time for the men to protect their women, too, and to look at and value the life-giving potential that we've been given.
Wow, that's awesome. calling our men alongside and helping them be more informed and helping them make wiser choices. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. It's
Okay.
it's a
All right.
couple
Well,
things.
I just want to be sure. I mean, I need to put it in words that I can understand. I can wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
I think that for too long, men have kind of been outside that whole life equation. I mean, they actually impregnate women, but just what that whole process. What does this decision mean to impregnate a woman? What responsibilities do I have, and how will I move forward in my life? And then dealing with the matter of convenience, which is a major component of our current culture. Everything centers around the convenience of the individual. People are not living in community anymore. And you spoke
Yes,
about
you're right.
that.
And I think even
that
families
whole
aren't living
walkaway
in community
mentality.
anymore, which is one thing that maybe we all need to sort of reflect on, because we've been given certain people. We didn't choose our family. They're gifts. Some of them may not seem like gifts, but they are gifts to us. And we've been given those gifts so that we can care for each other, so we can be, loving to each other. And part of loving each other is being there for the other person and valuing who they are as a person. Even our child that hasn't come to birth yet, to value them as a person and say, yeah, here's another person that I've been given to love.
Right, right. Well, one of the things you mentioned was that whole idea of us being willing to care for one another, being our brother's keeper, that kind of thing. And this whole process, when I think of just even the option of abortion, in my mind, I see two groups of women. I see teenagers in transition, and I see women between the ages of 25 and 45, married or single, and I see them making these kinds of decisions because they're looking for something beyond that pregnancy experience. And so if without the proper counsel and support system, abortion is the option. Terminating the pregnancy is the option, rather than being able to carry that life full term, raise that child. That is the
You're
option.
right. And see, part of the thing is she was never meant to do it alone. She was meant to be in a supportive situation. Life happens between two people, not just with one. And so she was never meant to do it by herself. And I think a lot of guys think that they are supporting the woman when they say, well, it's her body, it's her choice. But what the woman hears is, you're on your own, sweetheart. And that kind of a miscommunication can kill people. It can kill their child. It can kill the relationship. The breakup rate after abortion is almost as high as the breakup rate after the death of a child, which is in the 90+%. So to think that the abortion is going to save the relationship, it isn't. It's going to result in two of you grieving over the death of a child, even if the grieving happens later.
That is a very interesting statistic, that 90%, the end of the relationship, and that sometimes women want to have the baby because they think the baby will save the relationship. They want to get pregnant. One of the things I found is that conflict resolution is not something that we are taught, and we kind of feel our way through that. And if we don't become skillful in conflict resolution, we create events that kind of circumvent that whole process and take us out of the conflict and put us in another phase. And sometimes having a child is a way that a person will try to avoid conflict or the need for change in a relationship. And then if the gentleman does not want to have the child, for whatever reasons, economic, or he doesn't feel that, he's at the right stage of his life to be a father, and he asks the woman to have an abortion, but she's trying to save everything. This 90% statistic that you've given us, that, the relationship ends anyway. You know, it's kind of sad, kind of sad, kind of sad. We want to give a shout out to Mrs. RMD. Thank you for tweeting us on this topic of abortion. So doctor, I just want to just look at one last aspect of this whole thing of abortion as we're looking at men dealing with their women and abortion. What are two things that you would say to a man who is told today by his woman that I'm pregnant?
Well, I'd say celebrate. Here's your child. You have become, in truth, one flesh with that woman. And now's the time to show love for your child, to man up and say, I'm going to be there for this child and for you. I'm going to support you and my child because I love you and I love my child. And see, this, a woman's child, you don't mess with a mama bear. A woman's child is very much a part of the most intimate thing that she is. And when you say, I don't want that child, what you're saying to her is, I don't want the most intimate thing that you are. And so the symbolic nature of suggesting abortion is big. So when you impregnate a woman, then be there for her. And if you don't want to be there for her, then guess what? Don't impregnate her. It's an easy decision. It can be stopped, but you got to think beforehand. Do I want to be one flesh with this woman, and am I going to be there for her before you impregnate her?
Well, the thing about it is there's the other side where they don't want to be there for you. And I believe we have to have some kind of vehicles for our women, the pregnancy crisis centers, something that, and just nurturing families that they will be able to take care of them, in the event the man is not going to be there.
Absolutely. I mean, we know there's issues of irresponsibility, and because we love our sisters and we love their children, we will be there for them. We will help them. We have to, because that's what we're called to do.
Great.
I just had one last thing to ask back to. You said the first termination of the first pregnancy by abortion increases the rate of breast cancer. Are there statistics that say African American women of color have higher rates of breast cancer than other women?
I think it's regional, so you have to look at different regions. And I know that the breast cancer rate in New York is very high. And I would have to look at, a lot of the studies in the medical literature don't break it out in terms of race, so it's a sub-analysis that you have to do, and getting your hands on that is challenging. But what I can say is that New York has an extremely high rate of breast cancer and an extremely high rate of Black American women who are aborting their pregnancies. So there's a cry for good statistics on what is the relationship in Black American women between breast cancer and abortion. But I can tell you, if you don't tease out whether or not they're Caucasian or Black, women who have an abortion of their first pregnancy, delay childbearing, those women, regardless of race, are the ones who have an increased rate of breast cancer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrison, President of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. She's been our guest this Wednesday on Women's Wednesdays on the Harry Jackson Show. We want to just recap and say that, we need to be aware of what's happening in our culture. We need to help one another, and we need to be our brother's keeper. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you again next week.